little early today because we have to do some housekeeping. I want to say that we're going to start reviewing, and I want you to be able to be a part of the review. I want you to know what I'm doing so that you can follow along with everything that I'm doing. Again, this is Dr. McDonald, and I want you to be able to get me from where I'm doing the upload and everything. I want to start the review on chapter 1. And I want you to see chapter 1 lecture. And so chapter 1, we're going to do several things. We're going to do some definitions, and we're going to do a PowerPoint presentation as well. I want to start with you an introduction to human behavior and the social environment, which is chapter 1. Before we get started on that, I want to reiterate that my contact information is rmcdonald@texascollege.edu. That's my email. Please contact me if you're having problems with uploading your information into our JIG system. Now, you know all your PowerPoint presentations has to be uploaded into JIGs. I've given instruction time and time again. I've also given you my email address if you are having problems, as well as my phone number. So I'm going to give you my telephone number again, area code 318-470-2608. I want you to be able to upload your information. I don't want anybody to fail this course, and I can always tell you when you are in class face-to-face, my goal is for you to all pass with at least a B. Some of you say you want an A, so you have to do A work to get it. You can get a B out my course if you will follow my instructions on doing everything and putting it in. The better you do it, the higher your grade goes. The less you do, the lower your grade goes, and that is up to you. You know I don't like giving Fs, but I will give an F if you desire to have one. And I won't give it to you, you will earn it. And how do you earn an F? By not doing your work. And you already know that. And so if you do your work, you won't get an F. If you don't do your work, you will truly receive what you earn. You nothing from nothing, leave nothing. I think there's a song somebody sung one time. Nothing from nothing, leave nothing. I can't remember the man that sung that song. And so if you want to get something, and he said if you want to be with me, you have to get something. Or you have to do something. I don't know how they go do it. My thing is, I don't care about you being with me, I just want you to do your work. And I want you to do your work efficiently, and I want to make sure that I give you all the information that you need in order to get your work done. So, with all of that being said, we're going to go and get started. Again, my phone number is area code 318-470-2608. I need you to start uploading your assignments. If you have not begun, you need to start now, because you know next week, I believe, is the end of summer school. Now, if your work is not in, I can't grade you. And if I can't grade you, what happened? If you don't do your work, well, you already know the answer. I'm not going to tell you that again. I'm going to let y'all do that. So, we're going to do chapter 1 today. And this is a review. Going to do the introduction to human behavior and the social environment, chapter 1. So the text states that social workers link people with systems as a major thrust of social work. Number 2, the step in social work in which the problem or situation is analyzed and interpreted is called assessment. And we're going to be talking about these various definitions throughout this presentation. The lifespan development is separated in this text according to four categories. And the categories are infancy and childhood, adolescence and young, and then you have young and middle adulthood. And number 4, later adulthood, which is called the senior hood of the individual. And that's how the lifespan moves. You start as a baby or infant, and then into childhood, then you move into adolescence, which is what we call the teenagers in the United States. And then you have the young and middle adulthood. That's when you become, when they say young and middle adulthood, they're talking about you becoming an adult in the early stage, and the middle adulthood is when you are in the major area of being an adult, and then you go into the later adulthood, which is the senior status. Number 4, you have the psychological aspects of development, which concern how people think about themselves, how they think about others, and how they think about the environment around them. Then you have human diversity, which is a vast range of differences among groups, including those related to age, class, color, culture, disability, ethnicity, gender identity and expression, immigration status, political ideology, race, religion, sex, and sexual orientation. The act of treating people differently because they belong to some group rather than on merit is identified in this text as discrimination. Yeah, you discriminate against an individual because of a certain group they belong to, not because of what they earn or what they deserve, but because of what group they belong to. Prestige is the amount of social respect or standing given to an individual based on their occupation. We usually give a lot of prestige to the people in authority, such as judges, lawyers who can help you, doctors who can heal you, preachers who work with your soul salvation, or ministers of the gospel. Resiliency is the ability of an individual, a family, a group of people, a community, even an organization to recover from adversity and resume functioning even when suffering serious trouble, confusion, or hardship. And I gave an example would be Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Harvey, and now we can talk about Killer Whale, the volcano over in Hawaii that's erupted. And some people are so resilient they don't even leave their homes. They don't mind getting trapped in where they are because they want to stand and be there. Even though they're in serious trouble, they're suffering. And maybe some hardships, their homes are burning. Oh, we had the wildfires in California. You remember that? A few months ago, those wildfires destroying those mansions. We had earthquakes in Oklahoma and tornadoes in Missouri and Kansas. People were devastated, they were crying, and they were just confused. They were going through hardships and suffering. However, they stood firm and they're still rebuilding. They're going back. There we have Hurricane Maria over in Puerto Rico. Those people, some couldn't leave. Some refused to leave. Others left and came back. That's called resilience. And they're trying to rebuild their lives and their community, and their families, even though that was an adverse situation they found themselves in. Social workers behave in a trustworthy manner. social workers' challenges in social justice, injustice, and social workers recognize the central importance of human relationships, that they are based on ethical principles in the social work code of ethics, based on the National Association of Social Workers, which I'm a member. I just paid my dues for this incoming year. Critical thinking is the careful examination and evaluation of beliefs and actions to establish independent decisions about what is true and what is not true. So you don't just decide, you have to think about this carefully to make sure that when you do an examination and an evaluation of these beliefs and actions, you will know if it is true or not. Human rights involve the premise that all people, regardless of race, culture, or national origin, are entitled to basic rights and treatment. A set of elements which are orderly and related to make a functional whole is a system. A role is culturally established social behavior and conduct expected of a person in any designated interpersonal relationship. And I will be going through these various definitions as we go through this review. I have another sheet with just definitions on it, and I'm going to pull up in a minute, and then we will go into the PowerPoint lecture portion of it as well. Because I want these are things that you really need to know about, especially if you're going to be a social worker. These are social work definitions. A method system refers to any type of small group. The structural perspective on communities focus on how individuals fit into their community environment and are linked to those who govern. It is true regarding the social planning model that the planner is generally employed by a segment of the power structure. In the text, when it was not practical to refer to specific countries of origin, the authors arbitrarily used the terms Latino or Latina to refer to the wide range of ethnic groups within a population of people who originated from countries with a Spanish heritage. In the social action model, the text lists partisan social work roles. Community capacity development is the community change approach that assumes that the change is best accomplished when people affected by problems are empowered with the knowledge and skills needed to understand their problems and then work cooperatively together to overcome them. Individual practitioners and whole agencies are called upon to improve their performance is productive and valuable. And this is defined in the text as accountability. The social work role that involves resolving arguments or conflicts among micro, meso, or macro systems is the mediator. And we're going to define the micro system, meso system, as well as the micro system. And we're also going to define the mediator. Management and social work involve having some level of administrative responsibility for a social agency or other unit in order to accomplish all of the following, except help the client to cope with stresses. Management does not help the client. The individual social worker does. The management responsibility in the agency is to provide administrative work and to make sure that the agency is doing what it is supposed to do. Okay? The educator social work role involves giving information and teaching skills to clients in other systems. And the initiator is the person or persons who call attention to an issue. Recognize the extent to which a culture's structures and values may oppress, marginalize, or alienate, or create, or enhance privilege and power is a practice behavior that is listed under the Education Policy and Standards Core Competencies and the CSWE, Council on Social Work Education. It's part of the Engage Diversity and Difference in Practice. Now, let's look at the definitions. So in chapter 1, which is the introduction to human behavior in the social environment, we have some key definitions and concepts and terms. Number 1, a claim. A claim is an enthusiastic approval or praise, adaptation, the capacity to adjust to surrounding environmental conditions. The biological development is the physical aspect of a person's life. The biopsychosocial development is the combination of biological development, psychological development, and social development of a person's life. Boundaries, these are social work concepts. And I told you you would need to know these concepts and terms as a social worker because they're going to be used throughout your tenure as a social worker. Wherever you work, they're going to use some, if not all, of these definitions. Example, boundaries. The borders or margins that separate one entity from another. Code of ethics, and that's what the social workers are bound by. There are 6 basic principles to guide a practitioner's behavior, and you will find them in the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics. Community is a number of people with something in common that connects them in some way and that distinguishes them from others. We also have community theory. Community theory is the perspectives on the nature of communities, how social workers practice within the community context. Confidentiality, being trustworthy and keeping information in confidence. Critical thinking, the careful examination and evaluation of briefs and actions to establish an independent decision. About what is true and what is not. I told you we were going to be going back over some of these definitions I just went through with you. Differentiation is a system's tendency to move from a simple to a more complex existence. Discrimination, the act of treating people differently because they belong to some group, example, racial or religious, rather than on merit. Ecosystems theory. Systems theory used to describe and analyze people and other living systems and their transactions. Empowerment. The process of increasing personal, interpersonal, or political power so that individuals can take action to improve their life situations. Energy, the natural power of active involvement between people and their environments. Entropy, the tendency of a system to progress toward disorganization, depletion, and death. Environmental justice, the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people with respect to the development and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. Ethical dilemmas are situations in which ethical principles conflict and other solutions are what? Imperfect. That's a dilemma, something that's imperfect. Ethics, principles based on values that guide behavior and determine what is right and correct. Equal finality, the fact that there are many different means to what? The same end. Feedback. Feedback is special forms of input in which a system receives information about its own performance. These are social work terms, and you are going to come across them in the various courses that you will be taking if you're a social work major or if you're using social work as an elective. Homeostasis, the tendency for a system to remain a relatively stable, constant state of balance. Input, the energy, information, or communication flow received from other systems. And I'm going to define what systems are in just a few. Interdependence, the mutual reliance of each person on every other person. Interface, the point at which two systems, individuals, families, groups, organizations, or communities, and these are what we call systems, and there are types of systems. A system is an individual, it could be a family, it could be a group, it could be an organization, or it could be a community. And they have different levels in that, and we're going to discuss that in a minute. And so interface is the point into which two systems, either family, individuals, groups, or organizations, or communities, come into contact with each other, or they communicate. Then we have the systems, and here we go. We have three systems that we're going to be discussing. We have the macro system, the meso system, and the micro system. So the macro system is a large system and is larger than a small group. It is the largest system, that's why it's called macro. It is a system larger than a small group. It would be considered what? The community or a large organization. Then you have the meso system. That's a small group, including the family, a work group, and other social groups. Then you have the micro system, and that is the individual. So you have the micro system, which is the individual. You have the meso system, which is a small group, which could be the family, a work group, or other social groups, like a chapter of a large organization. And that's the macro system. A system larger than a small group would be the incorporated organization, of which the smaller groups come and be a part of. Now we have a natural environment composed of all the non-human living things and non-living things that are naturally on Earth. And I would say, I don't know for sure, but as far as we know, a rock is a non-living thing. All right, but it may be, but we don't know that. We have no proof that it is. So we would say it's non-human. Okay. And so it could be non-living as well as non-living. But that's natural environment. Natural support network. It's called a helping network. And a natural support network, which is a helping network, is a group of people, including family, friends, neighbors, work colleagues, and fellow members in organizations such as churches and other community groups who informally provide help and support. Now we have negative feedback, a problematic function. Negative entropy, on the other hand, is the process of a system toward movement, toward growth and development. Organizations, structured groups of people who come together to work toward organizations, structured group of people who come together to work towards some mutual goal and perform established work activities that are divided among various units. Well, let's look at organizational theory. Organizational theory specific attempts to understand how organizations function, what improves or impairs the ability of an organization to accomplish its mission, and what motivates people to work toward organization goals. Let's say that again. Organizational theory is the specific attempts to understand how organizations function, what improves or impairs the ability of an organization to accomplish its mission, and what motivates people to work toward organization goals. Outcomes, specific variables that are measured for the purpose of evaluation. Outcome, specific variables that are measured for the purpose of evaluation. Then we have output. Output is the response of a system after receiving and processing input that affects other systems in the environment. Person in the environment, a foundation, notion in social work practice, and our basis for understanding the dynamics of human behavior. Population at risk. Any group of people who share some identifiable characteristics that place them at greater risk of social and economic deprivation and oppression than the general mainstream of society. Power, the ability to achieve one's goals despite the opposition of others. And yes, prejudice. It's predetermined assumptions made without assessing facts. People just look at you and prejudge you. Prejudgment. They just prejudge you, they just determine without really knowing anything or knowing the facts, and they just assume something about a person without really knowing the truth or really checking out assessing the facts about it. You see a person walking down the street, they say that's a killer. And they don't know anything about that person. There ain't no facts to substantiate that assumption. Prestige, the amount of social respect for standing given to an individual based on their occupation. Privilege, special rights or benefits enjoyed because of elevated social, political, or economic status. Protection, factors that buffer, moderate, and protect against those vulnerabilities. Psychological development. Individuals' functioning and cognitive or thought processes. What is relationship? It is a reciprocal, dynamic, interpersonal connection characterized by patterns of emotional exchange, communication, and behavioral interaction. Resiliency. Like I've said, some of these definitions we've already discussed them, but I just want to go over them again because you're going to be seeing all of this throughout the courses that you take within the social work program. And you're going to see these within the work that you do as a social worker, that you do with any social service agency. You will come across, if not all, most of or some of these definitions, and you need to understand what they're talking about. So resiliency, the ability of an individual, family, group, community, or organization to recover from diversity and resume functioning, even when suffering serious trouble, confusion, or hardship. And I named some. Kilauea right now, the volcano in Hawaii that's erupted, people not leaving their homes, don't want to leave their homes, or going back to their homes to rebuild, to regroup, to reorganize themselves. And that's being resilient. And that's that adversity upon them, that the volcano is erupting and blowing out, spewing out ash and glass and whatever other debris. We had the big wildfires over in California. Those people went back home. They cried. They were upset. They were confused. They were suffering. It was serious trouble. It was a hardship for most of them, if not all of them, knowing that their homes were destroyed, that they had valuables, things that may not seem anything to us, but valuable to them, like pictures, keepsakes, things of that nature they were lost. But they were resilient. They went back. Look at the people in Puerto Rico. The hurricane destroyed a lot of lives and homes and the infrastructure. A lot of hardships there. But some didn't leave, others couldn't leave, but they were resilient. They were going back, their family members going over to help assist them. The government is there to help assist them. They're being what? Resilient. They're standing strong, standing tall. That's resilience. Now we can even go to Texas, where we are. Look at Hurricane Harvey, the Houston area, how it devastated the companies and corporations and buildings and homes and families. And the flood came and destroyed a lot, but the people went back. They were resilient. When Katrina came, they still built it back from Katrina. I was there, not in Katrina, but I was there in Bessie back in the day. But I can still say that my family's resilient because they're still there, they're still going back, they're still trying to rebuild, and they are rebuilding. I'll go down and visit all the time, and New Orleans is coming back. New Orleans is back. The food is still good. People are still friendly. Okay, let's look at social development. People's interaction with others around them in the social environment. So we're having social development, even in adversity. Stereotypes, standardized views about people who belong to some group that do not take into account individual qualities and differences. They just stereotype, that's an ugly person. They say that. But they're not looking at the qualities of that individual. What the difference that individual can make. Just say they are. They stereotype. Social environment involves the conditions, circumstances, and human interactions that encompass human beings. Let's look at the strength perspective. What is that? It focuses on client resources, on their strengths, on their capabilities, their knowledge, their abilities, their motivations, experience, intelligence, and other positive qualities that can be put to use to solve problems and pursue positive changes. That's based on strength. So a subsystem, what is that? A secondary or subordinate necessity that is a component of a larger system. Subgroups. People with similar problems or issues who come together and provide each other with support, information about how to cope with difficulties, and suggestions for resources. So now we're going to talk about a system. What is a system? A system is a set of elements that are orderly and interrelated to make a functional whole. A family is considered a system because it has a set of elements, individuals, and they are all interrelated, and they make one group, a family, a functional whole. Then you have theory. What is theory? Theory is a coherent group of principles, concepts, and ideas organized to explain some observable occurrence or trend. Transactions. Active and dynamic because something is communicated or exchanged. Transactions. That's an active. That's an action word, transaction. Active and dynamic because something is communicated or exchanged. You exchange with transaction, you exchange something. So what is typical? Levels of functioning that are considered appropriate for a particular age level. So you say a child 2 years old, that would give an example. That child will use the term no all the time. A lot of people say that's typical for them. You're 2 years old. They normally do that. All 2 years olds, or most 2 years olds, always at one point will start saying no, and they'll want to expressing their independence, and of course that's they call that the typical type of behavior for that child at that age. Values. Values are perceptions and opinions held by individuals, professions, and cultures about what is good and desirable. The last one we're going to look at is vulnerability. That is defensiveness or helplessness. And we say that people are vulnerable to certain type of issues or problems because they are helpless and they're defenseless. They have no help, they have no defense. Now, let's look at this PowerPoint slides here. And I want y'all to know we are reviewing. Okay? We are in review. So, we're reviewing chapter 1 again, the introduction to human behavior and the social environment. This is the introduction. So, some important concepts for understanding human behavior. Human diversity, cultural competency, oppression, and populations at risk. We have privilege, power, and acclaim. Notice I'm getting those definitions. Group membership and values. Societal perspective on group differences. We have individual empowerment. Remember we talked about their empowerment. Empowerment through groups. Organizational and community empowerment. Resiliency. Using strength to fight adversity. That's those. So, here are some important concepts stressed in this book. In this book, this chapter of this book that we're using. And you should visit with your syllabus to see what the name of the book is. The name of the book is, I'm going to tell you, Human Behavior and the Social Environment. That is the book that we're using for this course. So, human diversity, the vast range of human differences and the effects they have on human behavior. Cultural competency, the mastery of a particular set of knowledge, skills, policies, and programs used by the social worker that address the cultural needs of individuals and families, groups, and communities. Oppression, the condition of putting unfair and extreme limitations and constraints on members of an identified group. Population at risk, any group of people who share some identifiable characteristic that places them at greater risk of social and economic deprivation and oppression than the general mainstream of society. Empowerment, the process of increasing personal, interpersonal, or political power so that individuals can take action to improve their life situations. Resiliency, again, this is a good word that is constantly being used in social work because it helps with empowerment. The ability of an individual, family, group, community, organization to recover from adversity and to resume functioning, even when suffering serious trouble, confusion, or hardship. Human rights. The premise that all people, regardless of race, culture, or national origin, are entitled to basic rights and treatment. Social justice. The idea that in a perfect world, all citizens would have identical rights, protections, opportunities, obligations, and social benefits. Critical thinking, the careful examination and evaluation of beliefs and actions to establish an independent decision about what is true and what is not. Ethical dilemmas, situations in which ethical principles, conflicts, and other solutions are imperfect. Now, if you notice, we're constantly going over the same definitions over and over because this is a review. And you need to know these concepts and these definitions because you are going to, like I've been saying constantly, that you're going to go or come across them again throughout this social work program. And the courses are going to be interrelated, intertwined, and they're going to be using some of, if not all of, these definitions based on the course that you will be taking. So, a theoretical approach to human behavior and the social environment is the ecosystems theory. And here we have some key concepts. Notice these are the concepts, and I gave the definitions to you already. So you can review this again and look at these definitions. You have them in your handouts. System, boundaries, subsystem, homeostasis, role, relationship, input, output, feedback, interface, differentiation, entropy, negative entropy, and equal finality. And we just reviewed those, and this is what we call this a review. So, here we're going to talk about the systems theory concepts. You know, we discussed these already, but we're going to do them again. We have the systems theory concept and the ecological perspective concept. In the systems theory concept, we have a set of element system, which is a set of elements that are orderly and interrelated to make a functional whole. The boundaries or the borders or the margins that separate one entity from another. A subsystem is a secondary or subordinate system that is a component of a larger system. Homeostasis, the tendency of a system to maintain a relatively stable, constant state of balance. That's what homeostasis is, a constant state of balance. The role, the culturally established social behavior and conduct expected of a person in any designated interpersonal relationship. A relationship is a reciprocal dynamic interpersonal connection characterized by patterns of emotional exchange, communication, and behavior interaction. Input, the energy, information, or communication flow between received from one or other system. Output is the response of a system after receiving and processing the input that affects other systems in the environment. And feedback, a special form of input in which a system receives information about its own performance, either negative or positive. Interface is the point where two systems of any size come in contact with each other or communicate. Now notice we talked about the various systems. We had the microsystem, we have the mesosystem, and we have the macrosystem. Okay? So, you're talking about these systems. These are social worker terms. Differentiation. A system's tendency to move from a simpler to a more complex existence. And entropy is the tendency of a system to progress toward disintegration, depletion, and death. That means the destruction of a system as it moves out. Organizations may disintegrate or become disorganized or deplete or become separated, or they may be just destroyed. The organization, I see that it seems like it is not moving forward toward development and more toward disintegration or depletion. And I hate to say this, but it is the Masons and the Eastern Stars. And that's those two organizations seem to be, as they say, dying out. Their memberships are not as large as they used to be. And there's other ones. I know there was an organization in New Orleans and just dissipated. It just disappeared. It was a thriving organization when I was a youth. And as I got older, the members started dying out and others just didn't get involved in it. A lot of political organizations do the same thing. Negative entropy, however, is just the opposite of entropy. The process of a system toward growth and development. So negative entropy is when the organization is growing and flourishing and getting better. Equal finality. The fact that there are many different means to the same end. Okay? So from the ecological perspective, these are their concepts. Social environment, the conditions, circumstances, and human interactions that encompass human beings. Transactions, the means by which people communicate and interact with others in their environment. Energy, the natural power of an active involvement between people and their environments. Interface is the exact point at which the interaction between the individual and the environment take place. Adaptation, the capacity to adjust to surrounding environmental conditions. Coping, a form of adaptation that implies a struggle to overcome problems. And we have interdependence, the mutual reliance of each person on every other person. Now, the ecological perspective, these concepts deals with the environment, the individuals and the environment. That is the main thrust of the ecological perspective and their concepts. All right? So, people involvement with multiple systems in the social environment. You know, so told you already about the macro, meso, and macro systems. Interactions between this scale. This shows the interaction between the microsystems and the macro systems. Now, if you notice in the center is the microsystem, that's the individual, and it's a circle. And if you see that individual is interacting with all the other systems. The individual is interacting with the mesosystem and the macro systems. The family system is a mesosystem. The organizations are macro systems. The communities are macro systems. Then you have the groups, your work, your social groups, those are the mesosystem. And that individual interacts with all of those systems. Now, if you look at the mesosystem interacts with other mesosystems, the microsystem, and the macro system, which would be organizations. And the same thing with the mesosystem. It interacts with the larger macro systems and with the mesosystem, which is the family system. So all of these are interacting with each other, okay? Then we have models of community change. You have locality development model, the social planning model, and the social action model. So here's some characteristics of the three models of community change. The characteristic, number one, the goals. In the locality movement development, they have the self-help, improve community living, emphasis on process goals. In social planning, use problem-solving approach to resolve community problems, emphasis on task goals. And in social action, the goal is to shift power, relationships, and resources to oppressed groups, create basic institutional change, and emphasize task and process goals. Number two, assumptions concerning community. In the locality government development, everyone wants community living to improve and is willing to contribute to that improvement. Social planning. Social problems in the community can be resolved through the efforts of planning experts. And the social action piece, the community has a power structure and one or more oppressed groups. So social injustice is a major problem. See, social action is the one who wants to take charge and do something. Another one wants to plan, and the other one is develop. So here's the basic change strategy. In the locality development, the broad cross-section of people involved in identifying and solving problems. They want to develop people who does that. Social planning, the experts use fact-gathering and problem-solving approach. Where the social action group, the members of oppressed groups organize to take action against the power structure. Example, they call it the enemy. The power structure would be the enemy. So, number four, characteristic change tactics and techniques. The locality development, consensus communication among community groups and interest groups they want to discuss. These different groups want to do a discussion. So the social planning part, the consensus, or the conflict. And social action, they want the conflict or contest, confrontation, direct action, negotiation. Number five, the practitioner roles. In the locality development, the catalyst, the facilitator, coordinator, the teacher of problem-solving skills. That's the role. The expert planner, fact gather, analyst, program developer, and the implementer. That's social planning. Under social action, you have the activist, the advocate, the agitator, broker, negotiator, the participant. And number 6, review of power structure, locality development. You have members of the power structure are collaborators and in common venture. And social planning, you have the expert planner. The power structure is employers and sponsors. And social action, the power structure is external target of action, oppressors to be coerced or overturned. And then you have the view of the client population. The locality development, that's the citizens. Social planning are the consumers. And under social action, it would be the victim. So the view of the client role, under the locality development, the participant in a problem-solving process. That's the participant. And the social planning, you have the consumer or the recipient. And in social action, it's the employer or the constituent. So here are the social worker roles in a macro system. They are an enabler, I've already given you the definitions. The mediator, the interrogator or the coordinator, the manager, the educator, the analyst, the evaluator, the broker, the facilitator, the negotiator, the initiator, and the advocate. So, thank you so very much for the review, and we will be going through chapter 2 on tomorrow. We will be doing a review on that. Again, if you have any questions, please contact me by calling my number, and my phone number is Ray McDonald at Texas College. My phone number is area code 318-470-2608. My number for contact is rmcdonald at texascollege.edu. That's my email address. My phone number, again, is rmcdonald at texascollege.edu. My email address is rmcdonald at texascollege.edu. My phone number is area code 318-470-2608. Remember, you need to start getting your assignments in ASAP so I can give you a grade. You must upload them in coursework in JIX. And you may continue to follow me as I do these reviews. Also, if you have any questions, please text me or call me or email. I'll be looking forward to seeing you on tomorrow and continuing our work as we go through. Thank you so very much. Be blessed and have a good day.